We've had some great guests for you, and we're going to continue that. We wanted to have some really great guests for our 50th. Charles Davis from CBS Sports and the NFL Network is going to join us. We'll talk a little NFL with him. But I do want to talk to him a little bit about the college football playoff because he knows a lot about college football and obviously did a lot of college football before. And Bryan Shelton, the coach of the Florida men's tennis team as well, the national champs, Florida's only national championship, although they could still win it technically in track and field. I actually watched some of it Thursday night. Watched some of the track and field, and it was entertaining. I enjoyed watching it. I watched a lot of things. I don't know. I got in a mood. Mainly, I think I played too much golf and got too hot, so I just hung around. So they'll be joining us next week, Monday. We're going to have J.C. Deacon's going to come on, and we'll kind of wrap up Florida's golf season, but also preview the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. That's the biggest reason we're having him on. We want to talk a little bit about that. Of course, J.C. Deacon is, well, not only a great guy, but a great golfer. And we haven't had Robbie on in a while. We need to bring Robbie. Of course, Robbie, sponsored by Dr. Lauren Anderson. We'll have Robbie Andrew joining us on the show Monday. We were going to have him last Monday, and then he had to do some other stuff and couldn't make it. So we will have him on Monday as well. So that'll be episode 51. So we'll get through half a century of doing this. It feels like half a century. All right, the biggest story, and we're going to get to this with another thing that we do. Every Friday we have all these different little fun things we do. This, that, and the other is going to deal with the college football playoff. But I want to talk about it a little bit because there's some weird things that came out of this press conference that they had Thursday, I think it was. Yeah. And the one thing everybody has to realize is this thing isn't finalized yet. All they've done is say this is our recommendation for what we're going to do. 12-team playoff, top 6 ranked conference champions, whoever's ranked the highest, get in, which means like last year, Oregon wouldn't have gotten in, even though they won their conference. They weren't ranked high enough. And it was like weird looking at it, thinking about how Florida, if this was last year and we had this system in place, Florida would have played host at the end of the year to Iowa State in a playoff game in the Swamp. Winner takes on Clemson in a bowl game. We don't know which bowl game. Of course, they got to finalize all that stuff yet. And it gets me fired up. It's not a perfect system. There is no perfect system. The NCAA tournament with 68 teams isn't perfect. Everybody complains who got in, who didn't get in. The NCAA baseball tournament is not perfect, which is going on right now. Nothing is perfect, but, and again, you're talking about possibly if you won that first playoff game and then kept winning, you would play a 17-game season because especially if you played in your conference. You'd have to play in your conference game to play 17 games. And let's say you lost that game, but you still qualified as one of the top 12 teams, you could theoretically play 17 games. Another thing that people haven't really talked about a whole lot is that you're asking an awful lot of fans. Now, for us fans that aren't going anywhere, we're thrilled. We get to watch more meaningful games. But think about if you are a Gator fan. I assume a lot of you out there are Gator fans. And let's say Florida is the number 5 team. So they host a playoff game, and you're great. You get to go to another game in the Swamp, tailgate, it's going to be great. And then they win. Well, the next game, let's just say it's in the Rose Bowl. All right, well, going to the Rose Bowl, most Florida fans have never been there. I've been fortunate to be there for a Super Bowl. So you get to go there. That's a lot of money. And then you win that game. Now you're going to come back and let's say they put you in the Fiesta Bowl. Are you going to go to that? And then you win that, and the national championship is, at the Sugar Bowl, wherever it is. Are fans really going to be able to foot the cost? But there is a reason for doing it. A lot of people say this is a big money grab, but it's partly a money grab. But the biggest reason for doing it is that right now college football is waning in popularity, and we've seen this before the pandemic, where they were losing attendance. Attendance was dropping all over the country because people were, hey, we want to stay home and watch the games on TV. Well, give them more TV to watch. Give them more great games. And a lot of people believe that one of the problems that you're going to have here is you're going to take away from the regular season. I think it's the opposite. I think you're going to add to the regular season. Look, we've talked about this before, how the many of these athletic directors around the country have scheduled tougher. You know, Georgia has one scheduled down the road here where I think every team they play is a Power 5 team. Florida obviously adding teams like Texas, Colorado, Notre Dame. They're adding all these teams instead of playing the Samfords of the world, which of course they play this year. And the reason was they saw this coming. They knew that college football was going to go to a playoff system. There was no question in their minds about it. And, you know, it has become, I don't know, I'm excited about it. I know it's going to still be a couple more years before we get to this, and it ought to be really a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it anyway. All right, so we'll talk about that. We got a lot of other things to talk about, including your Leonardo's at Millhopper quick picks. We got a lot of qualifiers, man. You guys have gotten some really right. I got a good question for you this week. We'll get to the Adams Ribco to go Gator of the week, and actually, like I talked about last week, we're going to do things a little bit differently there. We're going to have our Mount Rushmore. We'll start with football. Actually, ate at the Adams Ribco to go today. Well, didn't eat there because it's to go. So you take it out and then you ate it there when you got home. And it was obviously really good. 3 things presented by Han Law. We'll get to that. The Friday football fix. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, this, that, and the other. You can watch us, as many of you are right now, on Facebook or YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, any of the 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. So obviously you can see from behind us, one of our sponsors decided that 6 months was enough, so we're looking for another title sponsor, although we've got the best title sponsor you could ask for in Titan MRI. And if anybody's interested in that, just give me a call. We've got all these other sponsors you see going across the crawl on your screen. Darth Shakow Insurance and Ballyhoo and Ironwood Golf Course and Adams Ribco and Gainesville Quarterback Club, and of course the great people at Han Law, Leonardo's and Millhopper. We love all these people for helping us out, and it really has meant a lot. So, all right, so we will get to Charles Davis in just a minute. He still hasn't hooked up yet, but hopefully he will very soon. Of course, Charles, known him for a long time, CBS Sports NFL analyst and NFL Network, and did a lot of college football too. But just to get back to the playoffs, one thing that I thought was really interesting was because they say that the 4 top qualifiers who've won their conference get the byes. Okay. Well, you know what that means. If you're one of the top players in the conference, or you win your conference, you don't get to have a home game. And again, there is an advantage to having the bye, and I think the advantage to having the bye doesn't always work in basketball, for example. Like when we go to the SEC basketball tournament, and sometimes it's better to play that first game, and you kind of get to know the gym a little bit more. It usually hits you in game 3 when that happens, but in college football, with all the hitting and all the stuff that goes on and the preparation, I think to have the bye is a huge advantage. And not just because you're one of the best teams, but for Notre Dame, because they're not in a conference, they can't get the bye. No bye for you. Now, Notre Dame will say, okay, we'll finish 5th and play at home. We have a pretty good home field advantage, and I'm sure that'll be exciting for them to play a home game. And if anybody else gets them to come to their place, that'll be exciting as well. But I thought that was interesting, but it is kind of a concept that I don't think a lot of people thought would would happen soon, but it is happening. So I'm excited about it, and we'll continue to talk about that as we go forward. Right now, though, we are going to go talk to a legend, and Mr. Charles Davis. Of course, you see him on CBS Sports and the NFL Network. But I'm not going to let you talk NFL first, Charles. I want you to talk about this playoff because you played college football. You did a lot of broadcasting college football. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about this.
Hey, Pat, it's great to see you. Can you hear me okay? Is everything all right?
Great, buddy.
First of all, number one, fantastic to actually see you and talk with you. Number two, my apologies for being a few minutes late there. For some reason, I had 2:15 in my head instead of 2:05, but that just tells you that maybe I got knocked around a few too many times back in that. that might be it as well. But last but not least, let's get to this playoff, this proposal of 12. And I can't wait to go back and forth with you on it because you know this sport as well as anyone. And for me, when it came about that they got to 4, I'm not sure you and I both thought that we'd actually see that in our lifetime because the Bulls, situation was so entrenched in college football. And there were so many people who didn't want that to change. But I guess what you and I both learned is that at a certain point, when the public either demands something or the money dictates it, things can change. So when we got to 4, and they remember how adamant they were that we're staying at 4, at least for the lifetime of the contract, which was 12 years to begin with. And what are we, like 8 years in or something? I don't know the exact number. But once again, the debate is out there. I thought the next number we would hear would be 8. To be frank with you, I'm stunned to hear that 12 is even in the discussion, but I don't shy away from it. I know a number of people are worried about devaluing the regular season. I know a number of people are worried about how does this, again, affect the bowls and all those other things. My thought process on it, Pat, is this. College football is a regional sport, yet it has a national bearing to it. But with the 4 that we've had and how it's gone down, and it's no one's fault. It's not the fault of Alabama. It's not the fault of Clemson. But they've been kind of the predominant teams that we see, and it feels like the same teams are in, and there's always a slot for Notre Dame if somehow they win 11 games or 10 games. So people feel like a lot of the country is shut out every year, especially out west. I mean, don't even get the Pac-12 started because the Big Ten's been shut out, the ACC's been shut out, but overall it's the Pac-12 that catches it short most of the time. I just think that for us as college football fans, to have that part of the country, to have so many people involved every year, no matter what, I think is good for college football as opposed to, oh, here we go, the playoffs, I'm done with college football for the year. I think that that's a bad thing that we have going on.
Think about this. If this was last year and this system was in play, Cincinnati would have hosted a playoff game, and Coastal Carolina would have been in the playoffs. I think they would have played Texas A&M at Texas A&M. What an experience for those kids.
Fantastic. And now you're talking NCAA basketball tournament experiences, but I do like the added element of on campus because I think if there's one thing 1AA and 2 and 3 have shown us over time, even though people don't see it unless you follow those programs, on the road, during December, during a playoff run, or earning a host spot, it's a big deal. That's NFL mob.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to say that's better than anything else, but that gives added incentive. Some programs are happy just to get in. Others are like, no, we've got a host. And then your fan base gets a chance to really experience it. They don't have to go on the road to go do it. They get to do what they normally do. And so economics, which are a big part of our world now, especially after COVID for all these schools, being able to recoup that, get another game of on campus, I think to me, that's a win. Plus, Pat, I don't know how many, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, and I get it all the time because when I work with Gus Johnson on college football, Gus is from Detroit. So every year when we get towards the playoffs and the whole thing, he's like, man, sick of you SEC guys talking all your stuff, blah, 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 blah. Tell you what, you want to show us how good you are? You come to Michigan, you come to Ohio State in December and January, and we'll see how good you are. I always used to say, well, if you guys were that good, it's not a worry where you play. Yeah, but that does add to the intrigue, right? Where all of a sudden we have these intersectional matches where now warm weather travels to cold weather. Cold weather travels out west. West travels back east, to play these early round games. And as you said, a Cincinnati's in it now, a Coastal Carolina's in it. And I think that TV will love all of it, except for one thing, Pat. And tell me if you think I'm really off base, because I'd appreciate it. TV loves Cinderella until Cinderella interferes with the biggest and best games.
Right. Yeah,
TV loves Cinderella all the way up to TV does not love Cinderella in the finals.
No. We wanted Gonzaga, playing in that final game against Baylor. I mean, we did not want whoever was coming out of nowhere to do that. But, the interesting thing is, you can tell Gus is, if we had had this system last year, we'd had 4 SEC teams, and 3 of them would have been hosting games. So he just still had to come down.
Believe me, I've told him that a bunch of times. Like, Gus, whatever system we put in, you're more likely to come our way than we are to go yours. But it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to keep in mind. But I go back to that Cinderella thing. I know a lot of people out there are probably listening and saying, "My God, Davis, you're just Mr. Big." It's not a matter of being Mr. I'm talking about the TV perspective, because we as a public always talk about Cinderella. But remember the old BCS, back when I was doing BCS, and they that network out west had that. They would, at one point, they had a Boise State TCU matchup when TCU still wasn't back into the Big 12. Remember, TCU was like Mountain West.
Yep.
The worst rated bowl game out of all of them. And all everyone said was, "I can't wait to see the little guy play." Look, they don't want to see the little guy play each other. They want to see the little guy play the big guy. Because then there's at least that intrigue that if Cinderella somehow has the slipper fit on her foot, they've beaten somebody. But that was the worst rated bowl game. Remember Tampa Bay and Philadelphia in the World Series?
Yep.
Horrendous rating. People like it all the way up. But let's be honest about it. People love the standards. They love to play the hits. They love the tradition-bound teams. That's what brings eyeballs to the set.
Well, let me ask you one more question about the playoff, because I do want to talk NFL with you. But you were a player, and as you said, you got hit around a little bit. but there is the potential for a team to play a 17-game season if they got into their conference game, lost it, then got into the playoffs and ended up getting all the way to the final. I mean, to me, it's almost like they're saying, "Hey, you guys are going to get this NIL money now. We finally have no choice. So we're going to make you pay for it."
Yeah, it's a tough one, Pat. And the thing we always look back on is 1AA, 2 and 3 have played, 14, 15, 16 games if you've gotten to the finals for years. But those aren't the people who are focused on the NFL as a general rule, right? Don't get me wrong. We get kids who come out of Division, 1AA, 2, 3. We get them. I mean, heck, we had that kid for Quinn Meinertz this year out of Wisconsin Whitewater. It was a 3rd-round pick, Division 3. 1AA sent us one of the top quarterbacks in Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. So there's always players. Don't get me wrong. But overall, the vast majority are going to be in the Power 5, Group of 5, that sort of a deal. So that's an issue in terms of that. But to my recollection, when we've played the 4 and it's a college football playoff, name who's opted out.
Nobody.
Right? But when you're not playing for a national championship, the opt-outs are huge. We saw it in Florida last year, just for an easy example. Right? And that's not a shot. You know me very well. I'm just pointing out with our audience, this makes it very clear, right? That was a big bowl game. And when we were kids, Pat, the idea of missing a Cotton Bowl, are you kidding me? That was anathema, right? But now, because of where we are, how these kids are trying to go, I have no ill will towards them. I get it entirely. But if that game had been part of the college football playoff, part of the 12 now we're discussing, those guys are probably all playing.
Absolutely.
And then, yes, you're holding your breath. You don't want them to get hurt. But somehow I think for all of them, if they get hurt in a game playing for a national championship or on the road to one, I don't think they look at it with the same, man, what mistake did I make? Will we end up getting kids who will look at their seasons now and go, boy, that might be too long. I don't want to do that? Sure. But I don't know that we get it the same way, obviously, that we do with the current system that we have. And again, not a slam, not a knock. Kids are doing the best thing they can for themselves. And I understand it for their job prospects. But I can't think of anyone who's opted out of a college football playoff game.
No, I can't either, to be honest with you. Let's talk a little NFL, and obviously the big story of this is talking season for the NFL, I guess.
This is what baseball used to call the hot stove league.
That's
right.
The hot
Remember
stove.
the hot stove league?
Where did that come from? Hot stove league.
My guess is, back then you had those big water heaters, Pat, and you also had the stove where you kept coffee on.
Yeah.
And you poured the coffee, and you sat around and chopped it up like we go to the coffee shops now. And I'm not talking going to the chain ones. I'm talking about our local place where we see all the people we know and all of our friends, and we fight it out every day. And then some loser has to pick up the check because they lost whatever game you play on the way out the door. Those would be the hot stove league people.
Well, I mean, obviously the big hot stove league story has been Aaron Rodgers, and it's been kind of, again, I'm watching it from a long way away, but I've watched it with great interest just to see what's happened. I like Aaron Rodgers a lot. I for some reason I had him as my fantasy quarterback one year, and I fell in love with him, and now I root for the Packers all the time. But where do you think it's going to end up with that? Do you think he's going to end up somewhere else, or do you think he's going to sit out and they'll go with Jordan Love, or do you think he'll start opening day?
I expect to see him opening day, Pat. I don't expect it to be a smooth road. It hasn't been so far. But I fully expect him to play because I think two things are going to happen off the top of my head. Number one, Aaron's making his point with Green Bay just by what he's doing right now. Whatever the disagreement is, and I'm not professing to know, you keep hearing different reports all the time. So after a while, I don't chase those reports. I just kind of let them happen. And since I'm not an insider and I have to be up on this, I don't care. Just tell me if he's going to play or not come September. But with all that, I think he's making his point with management right now. This is almost, to me, and again, this is an educated guess, punishment for 2 years ago not for drafting Jordan Love, but you can't lob a phone call ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex Smith just made the point recently that when he was in Kansas City, they called him in and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Just so that you know, here's our plan, here's what we're thinking if we do accomplish it. And he said they had multiple conversations. Not that Alex could have jumped on a table and said, absolutely not, you can't take a quarterback. Yeah. But he was informed. So at least he knew, and he was involved in all that. A couple of years ago when Mitch Trubisky came out of North Carolina, Pat, and you remember Ryan Pace, their GM, moved up from number 3 to number 2 in the draft, ensured that he would get Trubisky traded with San Francisco. I have this on really good authority. Mike Glennon had been signed as their free agent quarterback to be their starter. Mike Glennon was at a dinner that night, not a dinner, but you know how you have a draft celebration?
Sure.
With fans and your sponsors. The Bears had him representing them at that event for the draft. And they were trying hurriedly to get him on the phone. So when they made the decision in the draft room, his one of the coaches ran out of the room trying to get him on the phone so that he wouldn't hear it while he was, hey, the Bears pick. What? and so it's just, to me, it's just common courtesy, especially with an MVP and the guy as the face of your franchise. To me, that was a huge mistake. Huge mistake. Now, does that mean they have to pay for it forever? No. I do think that the Packers, if you're Green Bay, let's look at it very quickly this way, Pat. Why would you trade Aaron Rodgers? He was mad at you last year, and he played at an MVP level.
Sure.
You got within one game of the Super Bowl the last 2 years, and he's been ticked off for 2 years. I take my chance with him being ticked off again. I'd essentially say, we'll work with you. We'll change the contract. We'll try and do better in the future. We're sorry. Everything. But come September, whatever, we need you to be our quarterback here. And if you don't want to be our quarterback here, you're not going to be a quarterback anywhere. I'd play hardball like that. I really would.
Well, maybe it would have been smart to trade for Julio Jones, who, now with the Titans, I look at that team, and to me, they've got to be considered one of the favorites because they've got so many weapons. You cannot stack the box when they've got two elite wide receivers out there.
And you remember every great running back that's ever played in the NFL has a shelf life, and you never know when it is, do you?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Never know. And Derrick Henry looks indestructible, appears indestructible. He's my present-day Earl Campbell, where you just look at him and go, well, I'm going to hurt that guy. And you and I both are of an age who remember when Earl Campbell was coming off a 1,000-yard season. The next year he couldn't run anymore.
Right.
And no one saw it coming. Like, whoa, hey, Earl's really taking it easy in camp this year. Really? And
I think it was those tearaway jerseys. That's what got to him. Yeah.
but you remember he was never the same. As great as Emmett was, at the end, wasn't the same. You know, it's how it works for a run because they accumulate so many hits.
Sure.
So if you're Tennessee, this move for Julio, yeah, it opens up things for Derrick, but a big part of it to me is they know there's a shelf life on how they run offense right now, and Julio Jones makes them much more efficient with A.J. Brown out wide. And now go ahead and put 8 in the box. And now those guys are getting one-on-ones out there. And Ryan Tannehill, he may be underrated, but he's good enough to get it out there in a big way. And Ryan Tannehill could throw for 45 touchdown passes next year if people stay stubborn and keep sticking guys in the box.
Absolutely. Hey, we want to go around the state real quickly, and we'll start with one of your favorite guys up in Jacksonville because you did the national championship game in 2008 and in Urban Meyer. And were you at all surprised that he came back to the NFL?
No, I thought if he was coming back, it would be NFL and not college because everything had been taken care of in terms of what his legacy is on the college level. Mm-hmm. And the NFL, look, there's less things that constrain you in a lot of ways, right? You should just be a ball coach most of the time. You don't have to, no recruiting, no this, no buying, no banquets, none of this stuff. You just go coach ball. So I always thought that was the one. In fact, it's funny, Pat, you can go back and have me on record. The team I identified from was the Cleveland Browns 2 years ago. I thought if I were the Browns, I would have swung.
That would have been a good move.
Every fence I could get. Now, it worked out great that they got Kevin Stefanski, and they are one of our elite teams now in the NFL headed into the season. But to me, that was a home run move for them to go get him. And I'm not sure they didn't ask, but maybe that wasn't what he was looking for at the time. So I wasn't altogether surprised that if he was coming back, and I thought that he would, it would be an NFL team.
And he brings Tim Tebow with him.
Yeah.
Which for us is kind of fun.
Look, I think for the most part, and I've said it and I stand on it, Pat, all this so-called Tebow hate that I keep hearing out there, and I've had this conversation with friends of mine, I was like, look, I like the young man, okay? I'm just going to be upfront about the whole thing. He's been a tremendous young man every time I've encountered him, dealt with him, all those things. Do I talk to him on a daily basis? No. Have I talked to him in the last, 6-7 years, whatever it is? No. But that's not the issue. I said the issue, I think, for all of us is he's having a Walter Mitty life. And for those who don't get the reference, Google it. And it's the Walter Mitty life we'd all like to have. I just told my friends, I said, guys, I think you're jealous because I'm jealous. I want to be Tim Tebow. And I said, are you serious? Are you telling me now that if someone said, hey, go try out in the minor leagues with the Mets, hey, go try out in this, hey, go work SEC Network, hey, go this, you'd say, well, that just doesn't go with what I really want. Get it the heck out of here. Of course you give it a shot. And look, he brings with him what Urban Meyer wants the rest of the team to know, what the rest of the team to feel. And every coach we've ever known has brought his own people with him. Why is Tim Tebow any different than anyone else that we've seen along the way? This whole thing makes no sense to me. Either makes team or he doesn't. The only thing I will say is this. Does Urban have it in his heart to cut him if he's truly not one of the best players? Well, because Shad Khan, who owns that team, is going to be rooting so hard for Tim Tebow to make it, because that's selling tickets, that's selling merchandise, that's selling all those things for that's a big part of the equation. Where does the owner square with the head coach if the head coach walks in and goes, I want to cut him? Now what?
And that was a big part of why when he left Denver, Jacksonville didn't want to sign him because they didn't want to cut him. And they knew that if they cut him, and again, without that personal relationship, that would have been a huge negative. Now, nothing went positive for them for a while there, but but that certainly was a factor. Hey, what about the Bucks now? I mean, they get everybody back. I mean, it just feels like they're going to be right there again. And I know that you enjoy that, but I mean, it's been an amazing story for them.
It does feel that way. What we always worry about with dynasty teams is will they enjoy the journey as much as they did last year?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can I use the Gators for an easy example? Did anyone have less fun in that 22, 23 game winning streak down the stretch than the Florida Gators?
No, they were a miserable team there for a while.
Yeah, you remember, right? I mean, you told me about it. Like, This team they're winning, but there is zero joy in Gainesville. It's just relief that they won, move on to the next thing. Now, no one wants to advocate a loss, but if I remember correctly, they got beat in the SEC title game at the tail end of that run, right? Wasn't that the Florida game?
Oh, wait, yeah.
And then they came back.
09, sorry.
09, right? Didn't they come back and play Cincinnati in the Sugar Bowl and beat them by 800-0?
Yeah, I think it was 743-0. Yeah.
But you remember the joy they played with in that game?
Yeah.
Pressure was off.
Yeah.
Relief was there. They could just go out and play. You're not playing not to lose. You're now playing back. You're back to playing to win. Now, Tampa last year didn't have quite the same. Tom was there and what have you. They had their struggles, and then they got hot at the end of the year. This year, though, is right from day one.
Right.
Everyone circling, Super Bowl champs, everyone back. Everyone says they're happy with their contract. Some guys left some money on the table, could have gone elsewhere. If they all of a sudden have a 3-game losing streak in the middle of it, some of those guys would be like, man, I should have taken that money somewhere else. But overall, I like their odds because I like the guy who leads them in the way that he carries himself and the way he interacts with the team. That's Bruce Arians. You know, Bruce is probably not getting the credit he deserves because Tom Brady's his quarterback. But people have to remember last year, all during the season, who did Bruce Arians jump on for different things? Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, yep.
But I've always been of the opinion that he and Tom Brady had an agreement, Pat. And what I mean by that is he called him in early and said, look here, my man, for me to coach the rest of these guys, I've got to be able to coach you like you were coaching New England. It just didn't get out that Bill Belichick was all over Tom all the time. He said, I won't be all over you that way. But if I say something critical in the media, you just have to wipe it away. That's my way of coaching the rest of the team through my superstar. Are you in? And I'll guarantee you, Tom said, absolutely, let's go. Everyone acts like what Bruce did. You remember last year, people freaked out, didn't they?
Oh my God,
Bruce Arians said something about Tom Brady. I was like, Bruce Arians is too smart just to do that in a vacuum. You guys don't understand. I learned that lesson young, and I learned it from my father, who coached me in basketball in high school. And this isn't to set me up. I was the best player on the team. He used to be all over me. And finally I said, what's the deal? And he said, how dumb are you? I got to coach the rest of the guys. He said, you know, every parent is watching us because I'm coaching you. He said, don't you get it? Every kid is watching to see what I do with you. Don't you get it? I think the same holds true for BA and Tom.
I wanted to ask you about your family first before I let you go. How's everybody doing?
We're terrific. We're all fortunate. We got through COVID well enough that no one ended up in a hospital, ventilator, any of that. So we consider ourselves fortunate. Daughter, son, both had it. Sister-in-law lives with us, had it. But all came through it okay. Daughter's a Gator, by the way. So I did sign a lot of checks to the blue and orange.
That's okay.
And, but we're all okay. And then mom and daddy, somehow the old folks didn't get it. So I hope you and your family and loved ones, I hope you guys came through it in a similar fashion, because I just think we're lucky. Those of us who didn't get it, I consider ourselves fortunate. Look, I get it if you went to the rave and you were like, you know, right in the middle of it and you didn't care. But most of us tried to do the right things.
Sure.
And some people got it and some didn't. I'm not going to call it random because that's too easy of a term. But at times I wondered, like, how did I not? Because I was traveling for games. You know, the NFL, we still kept traveling.
I know.
How did I not? How did this person? How did that? You know, we're all trying to, most of us were trying to do the right things. Now, if I went to the Rager and I was taking my shirt, I was out in the middle of the dance floor and all that, okay, that's one thing. But most of us weren't doing that.
Nobody wants to see that anyway.
No. Hey, Pat, they want it zipped all the way up. And whatever you do, don't dance, Davis.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, it's always great to talk to you. I love you, brother, and it's great to get you on, and we'll maybe talk to you again down the road. I mean, I know you've been really busy, and you're getting ready to crank it up again with another NFL season on CBS.
I'm no busier than you, no busier than anyone who's watching.
But I'm retired.
You know, yeah, but I know what your retirement looks like. Okay, your retirement looks like other people's full-time jobs, but it's something that you're doing as love. You know, it's a labor of love. It makes it much better. But look, you and I have been in this business long enough. How many of our colleagues have lamented and groaned and this and that, and you and I have looked at them like, seriously? Every one of our friends would love to do what we're doing. How many of us say, hey, tomorrow I want to be a tax accountant?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being a tax accountant.
We get paid to go to football games.
All right? They're making better money than we are, but don't they want to do a lot of what we're doing?
Sure.
So we need to just let that part go and just be happy. Yeah, we get tired like everyone else, but please, we don't work any harder. Like Gus Johnson used to say to me all the time, Pat, and I'll let you go on this one. Hey, man, we're not breaking rocks or anything, you know? I mean, we're talking ball. And he's so right.
I used to get in my car and be 100 degrees, and I would have to be going to work, and I was mad about something that my boss had done, or mad about how a coach won't call me back. And as I would drive out, I would look next door, and there'd be guys up there putting the roofs on, you know. And I'm like, you're okay.
100-degree heat, because at least your air conditioning was about to kick in. They weren't getting any AC that day.
No, it didn't blow over them. Great talking to you, buddy, and we'll talk to you again.
You take care of yourself, okay? All the best to you and your loved ones, and hello to everyone in Florida for me, okay?
I will. You too, buddy. We'll take a break, and when we come back on our 50th edition, we'll be joined by the only national championship coach so far this year for Florida. They only have one other chance, but Bryan Shelton will join us. Of course, Florida winning the men's tennis championship. So hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Hope you enjoy this one. We'll be back with more on Another Dooley Noted Podcast.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, you know, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where, you know, everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this, you know, streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Ribco To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. Okay, welcome back to Another Dooley Noted Podcast, and it's a great pleasure on our 50th show. You know, we had Charles Davis on earlier, and now we're going to go. We had to get a national championship coach on on our 50th show, and there was only one to choose from. We may have one later. You never know. But certainly Bryan Shelton, what he was able to do with Florida tennis, men's tennis, to win the national championship down in Orlando. It was a lot of fun to watch, I can tell you that. And then to have an individual champion as well in Sam Riffis, who I talked to the other day for a story I'm doing for the Alumni magazine. So let's bring him on right now. Coach Shelton, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Pat. Appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, you've been busy, I know. You had a little family reunion to kind of, to kind of decompress, I guess.
That's right. It's nothing like family. Celebrate a little bit and put the feet up a little bit as well. We started recruiting already. June 1st came around. We had to hit the ground running. So my assistant, Tanner Stump, was on the road down in Bradenton watching the tournament already and having recruits come in town, doing some official visits and unofficial visits. So we're staying busy, but it's nice to be able to balance it out with some family time.
Yeah, one question I had for you. You're obviously the only coach that's ever won a women's and a men's national championship. How different is it for you to coach the women and the men? Is there much difference?
There's subtle differences. I mean, I think most guys that probably my age, maybe even your age, we have wives and we have kids and might have a daughter and a son, which I have, and there's some subtle differences when you deal with each gender. I used to say it was a 3-to-1 ratio of compliments to suggestion. Really want to feel like you're building up the self-esteem more than anything else. And so that 3-to-1 ratio had to be intact. Couldn't criticize something and come back with another critical statement a couple minutes later, and I think with the guys, it's probably more like 2-to-1, still got to stroke the ego a little bit. Still got to, not destroy confidence. You try to build them up, but you could be a little bit more blunt. You could be a little bit more direct. And so that ratio changed just a little bit. But as far as the culture and the things that you're trying to get the program to be about, those things really haven't changed much from my time at Georgia Tech to then coming here to Florida.
Yeah, what got you interested in the men's job at Florida after you were so successful at Georgia Tech with the women's program?
I think, I think in order to grow, in order to continue to evolve and keep getting better, you got to get uncomfortable. A lot of us want to be comfortable all the time, but real growth doesn't really happen in that environment. And I got pretty comfortable at Georgia Tech, the way we were doing things, the way the culture was set in place, what we had done for, I'd been there for 13 years before I came down here to Gainesville, and Jeremy Foley gave me that opportunity. And I was getting a little bit too comfortable, I think, with things were kind of running themselves. The captains on the team and the players that were there in place, they were teaching the young ones that were coming in exactly how we do things. And so to be able to have the opportunity to start over again, start fresh, and try to build something special again was very, very appealing to me. Getting down to Florida, I thought that, there were two programs that I was really interested in looking at if the jobs ever came available, and Florida was certainly one of those. To be around other championship programs and coaches and administration, that was very appealing to me. And then have the opportunity to work with the men's side. It's just a different level of ability, different mindsets for the guys. And really, obviously having played at a high level myself, I felt like there were some things that I could really help these young men in their developmental process to become real men. And I felt like there's some things that I could do on the men's side that I wasn't able to do on the women's side, as far as relating to the players. And so I just thought that was a great opportunity. Most don't get that chance, Pat. So when I got it, I had to jump at it.
Yeah, is the story true that they actually sent the director of ops to the airport to get you to say, "You got the job, don't go home"?
That's exactly what happened. I spent about a day and a half in Gainesville, went through all the meetings, and had some really good conversations with all the administration, with some of the coaches on staff, and the day ended, and all of a sudden I'm on what I thought was the last flight out of Gainesville, got dropped off at the airport, and it wasn't 10 minutes later, I got a call from Jeremy Foley saying, "Don't get on that plane. We're sending Kate Hart back to you. She's going to bring you back here, and we've got one or two other things we have to discuss, and don't you worry, we'll get you home tonight, but we can't let you leave just yet." And so I went back into his office. His whole staff was in there, and he basically said, we couldn't let you get away. We wanted to make you the offer face-to-face. We don't want to do this over the phone, and you're our guy. If you want this, we want you. And, I said, let me call my wife and make sure, because, it's not just me that I'd be moving down here. It'd be a family of 4. And she gave the blessing, and I told Jeremy, and I remember his words, what he said that day. He said, "The Gators just got better today." And he was so excited. If someone has that much confidence in you and believes in what it would mean to the program, that said it all. I mean, one of the greatest of all time in that chair saying that the Gators just got better today. So pretty cool.
What did you feel like you had to do when you took this job to get the culture where you want it? What were the biggest, if there were, obstacles that you had to deal with?
Well, I think, just setting standards. First of all, it's, they're going to look at the head coach, every single day. How hard do I work? What are the things that I value? What are the character traits that I want this program to resemble? I think those things really needed to be set in place. And so I really tried to, with my own actions, kind of show the way of how we do things. First to my staff, and really making sure the operations director and the business in place, and Kate Hart. So then it was just bringing in other people that would resemble the things that I wanted the program to resemble. And Scott Perlman was coaching up at UNC at the time, and I brought him in. He was one of the first guys that I brought in to be my volunteer assistant. A guy with a lot of experience, and I knew that his character was without question. So getting the staff right was the first thing, and then starting to meet with the players and let them know that here's the way we're going to do things here. Number one, my first responsibility to you guys is to help you become great men of character, and really, really focus in on that piece. If you've got the right character is a lot of different things, but it's the right work ethic. It's the right ability to respect that Florida provides us with, not take those things for granted, understand that you represent someone bigger than yourself. Just making sure that we had the right guys coming into the program, and the ones that were there, they got to get on board. They've got to get on board and get on board quickly, because we're going to go and we're going to do things the right way. It's going to be slow process as far as the results probably, but we're going to do it the right way. We're going to start with the foundation. We're going to build up from there. And then when we get there, we're going to be able to sustain it, because the foundation is really, really strong in the things that matter most. And then Foley, I remember what he told me. He's like, "I want you to do 2 things, Bryan. I want you to go out there and recruit the best student athletes you possibly can, and I want you to coach them up, and we'll handle the rest." And so that has been a true statement. Scott Strickland has continued that. He's allowed us to do things the way we feel like we need to do them to be successful. And his message to us is just continue to do things with integrity. First class, treat others that come into this program, or whether they're visitors, visiting teams, whatever, you make sure you treat them with respect, because you want to be treated that way when you go to their facility and you compete against those guys. And continue just to model yourself after the other championship programs that we have in place here already. I mean, you don't have to look far. Tim Walton's right around the corner, and Mouse Holloway's right there, and Becky Burley's was right there all the time. And Mary Wise, and on, J.C. Deacon, these guys do things the right way.
Let me just ask you one more question, then we'll let you go
Okay.
because it's kind of breaking up a little bit.
Okay.
From what I've been told, you would kill me in golf. Okay. I've been told by people you're like a 1 handicap. Is that true?
That is true. You know, it's one of the things I truly enjoy doing outside of tennis and family. Something that, you know, I picked up golf literally at the end of my own college career. My assistant coach, a guy named John Desdunes, he took a few of us out to a golf course in Atlanta. And I got hooked. And my whole time that I played on the professional tour, that was what I did to relax on the side, was go out and play some golf with my buddies. And that's been able to continue here, especially in this great state of Florida where the weather's good most of the year. I don't mind getting out in the heat. And one of the things that we did is we moved on to a golf course here in Gainesville. It was called Hill Plantation. Now it's called Hawkstone. And we live on the 18th tee box. And to be able to go out there in the evenings and putt and chip and play a few holes regularly, it's really been a lot of fun. And I've got a group of guys that I play with that want to beat me every time I go out there. So the competitive juices are always flowing, and we have a really good time. So we got to get out there, Pat, sometime and play.
You got to give me at least 8 strokes, okay? At least 8 strokes. I've got 2 artificial knees.
I've heard that you're a little bit of a sandbagger, so that's probably like 2 strokes.
Hey, Coach Shelton, we really appreciate you coming on, and good luck next year. And I know you'll continue this going on. And you know, just talking to Sam the other day for a story I'm doing, what a great kid. I really like that guy a lot, and we'll see if he comes back. But obviously, his first Challenger tournament he played in, he won. So that may have been bad news for you.
No, every time he wins, we win. That's for sure. You know, we want these guys to be able to go on and be successful professionally. It only helps. I mean, it's great for them and for their families, but also good for the Gators, you know. And I appreciate everything you do for the Gators. And, you know, I know you love this place the way that I do. And that's really special. So thanks for having me on today.
All right. Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
We will take a break. We'll come back. We got a lot of things to cover, a lot of different things to deal with, as you know, our normal routine on Fridays. We look forward to that as well. And we appreciate everybody for clicking on. We'll be back with Another Dooley Noted Podcast, episode 50. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Drip Co. To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, you know, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where, you know, everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this, you know, streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam Drip Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast. And obviously, we've been really lucky in all, because this is our 50th show, which means we've had 100 guests, right? Well, close to 100 guests, about 98 guests, and about 93 of them it's been flawless with the reception. But again, it depends on where you are, not where we are. But Evan did a great job of making that work, and we could have kept Bryan on a little bit longer, but we appreciate his time and appreciate Sam Riffis too, because I talked to him and did a really good story. It'll be in the Alumni Newsletter magazine. We got a lot to get to in a short amount of time. Let's start with the Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the Week. We talked about how we're going to do something a little bit different during the summer because there's obviously not much going on in Gator sports. So what we're doing is a Mount Rushmore for each sport, and we'll start with the football one. And it's, look, there's an obvious first three, and their statues are all out there, right? You got to go with Tebow. You got to go with Spurrier, obviously, for both as a coach and as a player, and you got to go with Danny Werfel. So the question is, who's the fourth one? Now, there are other names up on that wall, and I thought about this long and hard because there's so many guys. I mean, Urban's going to get up on that wall eventually. You know, you have to consider Charlie Pell, who built the foundation for Florida football, and Florida would not be what it is without him. I consider Alex Brown, because Alex Brown is the sacks leader and did so many great things. I consider Percy Harvin, who might have been the best player to ever play here. Reggie Nelson was another name, Lewis Oliver, Lito Shepard, Wes Chandler, David Little, all-time tackles leader, Lomas Brown, Eric Red. I considered them all, but in the end, I went with Wilbur Marshall. Wilbur Marshall was the best defensive player I ever saw here. He would be on my Mount Rushmore. I had to have one defensive guy up there, right? So that is the Adams Ribco Gator of the Week. We'll do this every week with different sports. So we'll do basketball. How about basketball? Will be really interesting on Monday. All right, the Leonardos at Millhopper Quick Picks. We qualified so many guys. Some guys qualified 2 and 3 times over picking, because there was only 2 guys that picked Oklahoma to win the national title. So they both got it right. So we're going to give you another easy one, but this will be a fun one. I know the College World Series doesn't start for a little while, but I want to know how many SEC teams get into it. The Super Regionals have already started. You got 6 teams. Only 5 can get in because 2 of them play each other, Tennessee and LSU, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and LSU. All you got to do is give me a number. The number could be 0. The number could be 5. Anything in between. That is our Leonardos at Millhopper Quick Picks. For this, that, and the other, presented by Ballyhoo, Dar Shakow Insurance, and Ironwood Golf Course. We kind of have been through this. This is, we don't need a college playoff. We have the BCS. That's all we need. That is, the fans have spoken. We have gone to a playoff, a 14 playoff, and we're going to keep that forever. And the other is, now where you could have as many as a 17-game season. It's weird. The whole thing is weird. So we appreciate that. We got to get to the 3 things presented by Hand Law. Number 1, I announced this on the radio earlier, but we got all the money in and everything and all the checks cashed. And we ended up raising $26,000 for Stop Children's Cancer through the Bob Dooley Invitational. So that's number 1, and really happy for all the people that were a big part of that. Number 2, the College World Series was so much fun to watch. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I hope you did too. Oklahoma beating FSU didn't hurt. But the thing is, Oklahoma is now the Alabama football and Oklahoma softball are pretty much the same thing. They won 4 of the last 8, and they're probably going to win it again next year. And that makes it really tough for these teams like Florida to do this. And then number 3, Kevin O'Sullivan issued a statement yesterday after all. There were so many rumors out there, and I don't get into rumors unless I can substantiate them. There were so many rumors out there that he wasn't going to be back as a coach, that he was going to go to LSU. But he issued a statement saying, I'm back, I'm the coach at Florida, and that's all you need to know, and don't worry about it. One day I may get all the stories about it. And finally, the Friday football fix. I'm sorry to rush through all these things, but we were running out of time. I'll give you quickly some early odds on Florida games. Florida is a 16-point favorite over Tennessee, but 3 games they are underdogs. And you know which 3 they are. At LSU, they're only a 1.5 underdog, though. That's not bad. Alabama, 14.5-point underdog at home. Man, you don't see that very often for a Florida team. And then finally, Georgia, Florida is a 6.5-point underdog. And this is very early. A lot of things will change, and you may want to get on these bets now. I don't know. All right, so appreciate Adams Rib Co. to go. Appreciate 3 things presented by Hanslaw. Appreciate the Gainesville Quarterback Club, Ballyhoo, Darshakow, Ironwood, Leonardo's and Millhopper. I'm sorry we had to go quickly, and of course our main sponsor, Titan MRI. But we will get, we'll spend a little more time on this stuff on Monday. But right now we got to get out of here. Until next time, I am Pat Dooley. I am deep. I'm way back, and I am out of here.